listeners, and welcome back to the LD Aviation Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Dyer, and today's episode is one that's especially close to my heart and frankly, long overdue. We're diving into the world of women-owned and run businesses in aviation. And I have the absolute pleasure of sitting down with these two powerhouses who I also happen to have known for a very long time. In fact, I think we've known each other and worked together here and there for over 20 years. So joining me today are Paula Kraft and her daughter Amanda Kraft, an unstoppable mother-daughter duo who have built not just one, but three industry-shaping businesses. From launching Tastefully Yours Catering in Atlanta to creating Airware, because yes, even paper products can be fabulous. From launching Tastefully Yours Catering in Atlanta to creating Airware, because yes, even paper products can be fabulous, to co-founding the DaVinci In-Flight Training Institute, these women have redefined what it means to lead with creativity, innovation, and a whole lot of heart. So if you're into aviation, entrepreneurship, or just enjoy hearing stories about women getting it done, you're in the right place. Let's get started. First of all, thank you, Amanda and Paula, for taking time out of your very busy day to speak with us. I'm super excited to hear your stories.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Delighted.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in, but I guess quick before I start, could each of you just tell our listeners a brief bit about yourselves? Because I think that will help set the stage for all this creativity.
Well, Amanda, you want to go first?
I was going to ask you the same thing, Mom. I think you should go first.
It's a business decision. So I have been in aviation for close to 44, 45 years. I've lost track of time.
Wow.
And actually stumbled into it quite by accident.
Okay.
I was a caterer for Macy's department store, and we provided food to the Macy's food seller. And as part of that, I did all the offsite catering that a Macy's customer or client would call and ask for.
Okay.
And I catered a picnic in the park. And that picnic turned into my grand opening of aviation. So the first client I had loved the food so much that they put their administrative assistant on the phone to get in touch with me and ask me if I'd be interested in catering the executive dining room and their aircraft or flight department.
Okay.
And at that time, I thought a business jet was just like a Delta jet. So when I went to the airport with all my food and I was so proud of my packaging, it wouldn't fit through the door of the aircraft.
Yeah.
So the women and the flight department manager decided that after they had tasted all the samples, they placed a large order. Now, mind you, we stayed up all night producing the first order because they wanted one of every category. They ordered the same thing again, but instead of ones, it was two of this, five of that, four of this. And I'm still thinking a Delta sized jet because how can you get that many portions on a plane? But it turned out it was for three aircraft. And we delivered it the next day and again stayed up all night. And kids were in the kitchen with me.
Wow.
And my sister came over to help, and everybody was there, neighbors, to get this order done. And we ended up, it went over so well that within about a month, I left Macy's as their in-house caterer and started catering private aircraft. And it's been a roller coaster of fun and excitement, and I love every single minute of it.
Awesome.
And we were successful because everybody that we came in contact with wanted to mentor us. They wanted to give us their information. So the flight department manager, sat me down and said, now this is what a normal portion size looks like, or your cookies are too big, or your portions are too large.
Okay.
We need it to fit in this tiny little cubby on the aircraft. And then as they started sharing my name, then the dispatchers gave me lessons in how they like the chicken cut and how they wanted it prepared. And so I guess in the end, I had three big major Fortune 50 companies that their staff at the airport were teaching me everything I needed to know about aviation.
That's
And it
awesome.
just took off from there. And in the beginning, the kids were young and they washed dishes and they picked up and did the trash. And, we kind of all jumped in together, and it was a family affair at that time. Still is.
That is so cool. So
Yeah.
Amanda, do you remember that little when you were young? Like how young are we talking?
I was 8.
8?
Actually, I think I was it started when I was 6, but or she started catering when I was about 6. But yeah, I remember going on deliveries with my mom and my dad and seeing the airplanes and getting to walk on the airplanes when I was that young.
Mhm.
Um but absolutely, I remember learning to drive. The guys on the tarmac would
They
direct me
did. Yep.
with their lights, saying, "Hey, trying to help teach me how to drive." It was kind of funny,
That's awesome.
but
And
but
by the
yeah.
time, yeah, by the time the girls were dating, the line service guys were acting as the um, clearance group to approve or disapprove of their boyfriends and anyone that they wanted to date. They had to take them out to the airport to be approved.
Very nice.
Yeah, so,
Good.
but it
Oh,
was
that
fun.
sounds great. So Amanda, you started really, really young in this. Give us a little bit. I mean, we kind of know your background, but what additional things did you ever maybe try and not go into the catering business in the beginning?
Yes, I did. I went to school at University of Georgia, and
Mhm.
Kennesaw State is where I actually graduated.
Okay.
Because I was finding myself driving back and forth from Athens a little bit too often to work for it to be worthwhile for me to stay there. So I came home and finished up my degree there. But I was actually going to school for veterinary medicine.
No way. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yes
Very different.
way. So I was during high school, I was working part time at a vet clinic in Marietta,
Okay.
and I loved it, but I wanted to specialize in marine animals. So I did an internship down at Moat Marine Laboratory in Sarasota,
Okay.
and we induced labor on a 350-pound sea turtle, and we went out and did a bunch of the sea turtle collections for the nests and things like that. And
Hmm.
it was wonderful. I loved it.
Hmm.
But it was just one of those things where I was a sophomore in college, and I looked and I was like, wow, 10 more years of school. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't quite wrap my brain around that one. So,
Yeah.
and mom needed help in the business, and I enjoyed it. And it's like I grew up in that business, and I you know how aviation is. Nobody ever leaves general aviation. They just change jobs. So
Yep.
I have been around most of the people that we had worked with since I was a child,
Hmm.
in one aspect or another. So it just seemed like a natural progression to stay with the business and work in it. So,
That's so I have my first daughter, my oldest daughter just got finished her first year in college,
Oh
hmm
and
my.
I am she's working the summer with me. And so I'm anyway, the part of the question was cuz I'm curious, like how does that go? Like is she going to, cuz she's doing finance and marketing. So I'm wondering, is she going to go on to do that, or is she going to come back to work with me? And
well, I
I'm
mean, and honestly, when I switched from veterinary medicine, I switched to business, and it was
yeah.
I majored in marketing and minored in management. And one
Okay.
of the first projects I did with my mom post degree was actually redoing our Tastefully Yours menu.
Oh, okay.
And that was the first time that I that I'm aware of, I should say. We had a full color menu with hundreds and hundreds of photographs in it, and that was one of the things that we did for marketing,
Okay.
because we don't advertise. We never did for Tastefully Yours. We Other than going to conferences, there's not really it's not as beneficial to advertise in industry publications even.
It's
Sure.
more word of mouth
It's
and
100%
experience. People want
referrals.
to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it was an interesting dynamic to take, the education that I had at university and put it into the business. And I remember even during school when I'd come home from class and I'd say, "Hey mom, you know that thing we've been doing for like decades? That it actually has a name. It's called this, you know." And so I tell her, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. This is, as far as the running of the business, the
The
marketing or
belt,
the
wasn't
yeah.
it called a belt graph or something like that?
I don't even remember which example, exactly it was, which is funny now because I mean, it's just looking back on it, it's things that we did naturally but didn't realize that there was a name for us. That was the
Sure.
funny part. But anyhow, that's so I ended up taking over more of the back end of the business because mom always had the passion for food.
Yep.
And while
Okay.
I enjoyed it, I didn't have the passion for it. I did have the passion for the business itself and the
Okay.
the back end of the business. So it was a matter of me finding my place
Mm-hmm.
in the business and where I felt most comfortable. And even now, I still run the back end of the business, the bookkeeping side of things, but I'm more than capable and I thoroughly enjoy going into the kitchen and making something
Oh, yeah.
beautiful. Where you take like kind of raw materials and you take something, whether it's melon and you turn it into this beautiful creation, that's a beautiful fruit tray. Or, we had a customer that had a bunch of kids on board and they asked for, like a specialty fruit tray. And so we made I carved a
You had
sea
turtles
turtle. It was
and
a sea
yeah.
turtle out of an apple,
Oh,
like a green apple. And I made a
so
sea
cool.
anemone out of mango and, you
Wow.
know, uh,
You had
turned
mice in there
yeah,
too.
some little pears I turned into little mice. I mean, and so
Wow.
it's that kind of fun and creative stuff that we get to do that kind of makes it all worthwhile, whether it's, doing the actual food prep or it's the back end of the catering as well.
That's so good. I think that's a really good point. And you have that leeway when it is your own company, whereas maybe if you
Right.
were working at the vet office, you really wouldn't. There'd be procedures, processes that you have to follow.
And
Follow.
a certain
Yeah.
position. And
Yep.
we volunteer and, and do stuff like that. So I'm still getting my fill of the fun part of veterinary medicine, even though it's not actually doing that. But it's like, okay, we're gonna go and we're gonna protect the sea turtles, as they're making their way and things like that. And we, obviously we do what we can. But
That's so cool. That's
yeah.
awesome. So great story. Was there any like did the your finance excuse me, your family dynamic, did that influence your culture or maybe service model of the company at all?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
mom, don't you agree?
I totally agree because we our clients became our family.
Okay.
So
That's really
we treated our clients as family. They weren't clients. We got to know all of the clients. When the girls got married, we had like 20 people family, but the rest of the 100 were clients.
Oh wow.
So,
That's awesome.
those became our friends. We didn't go and socialize and go out, but they became so close to us, and especially with the girls learning to drive on the ramp. I mean, Amanda's older sister took out the whole underbelly of my car going over a little concrete wall, and we all laughed about that. And, so yes, it really did. We had a huge family because of aviation.
Okay.
And when the companies or the people within a company changed or went to another job or the pilots, they took us with them,
Okay.
which
Yep.
was kind of nice. So it created a
Just
really
like you,
nice
Lindsay.
network. Yeah.
That's right. I know. I remember back working for Cox, we ordered from you guys. You guys stopped by. I mean, Amanda, I remember you driving.
Absolutely.
Um, I remember too. I mean, you would come upstairs every once in a while, and before we started recording, I know I wanted to ask you about this, but Amanda, you came up one time and you told me all about your semester at sea. I think is what it was called. You got to
Yeah.
travel on a boat.
It
That
was fantastic. Mom always told me, she said, "You're never going to know what you want to do in this world until you see what the world has to offer."
so true.
So she always encouraged us to go out and try new things, experience life, and
But not
travel.
that I was going to ever let them out of the business, mind you.
Hey, that's I feel like there's a few similarities here internally in my house because that's what I feel like as well. My daughter went out away to Italy for a year, so I was like, you got to travel now, go out and see it
Yeah,
all. But I
do it while
really,
you can for sure.
yeah,
And it was a really good experience for me to be able to experience other cultures and to see the difference. I mean, I mean, you mentioned Italy. I mean, eating in Italy I mean, it's an event. Like you
yes,
stop doing everything else. And it's interesting though, like even in Spain where they have, the afternoon where basically everybody stops working for the afternoon and they go and home and either have meals at home with their family or they go to a restaurant all together and everybody sits and enjoys time together as a family and then they'll go
yep,
back to work later. But I mean, it was very interesting to see all of that. I mean, I went to India and I went to Cambodia and I went to Vietnam and South Africa and Cuba, Brazil. I mean, like,
Russia.
yeah, I went to Russia and Norway and just being able to taste all of the different foods and to see the different cultural aspects of just eating. It kind of opened my eyes
yeah,
up to challenges that we might face servicing people
Hmm.
that travel immensely around the world or are from other
mhm,
places in the world when they come to Atlanta for catering, or when we're talking about training at DaVinci um, for service, because there's different ideas of service and different expectations of service based on where the passengers are from.
yep,
And having that international experience definitely opened my eyes up to a lot more than just, hey, I'm Southern and everything here is deep fried and it's served buffet style.
right, yep.
Or it's a casserole,
Or casserole, right? Oh my
I
god,
mean, that's how, my experience was up until the immense amount of traveling that I was able to do that mom uh, definitely enabled me to do. And I think
well,
between 2000 and 2004, I visited over 35 countries.
wow, boy, I hope
Yeah.
you wrote that off, Paula. Like that's totally a write off
No,
for
actually, I
education.
didn't. So, but I should have, I guess. But she
Yeah,
came back a new person, and I really did see the change in her communicating with our international flight attendants and preparing a flight attendant that was leaving Atlanta with information about a country she had been to, but maybe they hadn't been to.
Yeah.
sure.
So it really, and it was wonderful because she came back with this new energy and threw it all into the business. And,
Wow,
it was a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it as much as she did.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
So,
so cool.
yeah.
That's so cool. I
And
agree.
she did get to go on a couple of those journeys with me. I mean, let's not, there
Yeah.
it is. She's like, aha. Yeah,
Yep.
that's exactly, exactly what it was.
All
So,
So,
education, it's learning for the business. That's
absolutely.
maybe now you guys have to create a new trip that's going to be business,
I would
business,
love to.
yeah,
There's
education.
definitely some more locations in Southeast Asia I'd like to visit. So,
That, yeah, so cool. So I am kind of curious. So you did mention you're based out of Atlanta and
mhm.
Florida now, but and 44 years ago, Paula, when you started, aviation was a little bit different. There was
very.
mostly male dominated world. Did you guys ever feel that? Uh,
I personally didn't.
I
okay.
If I
didn't
can, I'm
either.
about to say, if I can jump
Okay.
in, I mean,
Yeah.
mom always raised me as you do your job and you do it well
Uh
and
huh.
you love what you do,
Yep.
people will see that. And I never looked at aviation as male dominated or
Mm-mm.
any kind of I hate to not sound like a feminist or anything, but as far as like glass ceilings, I never saw it. And I feel like that has a lot to do with the way that my mom raised me more than anything else, because she said, you know, the only impediment you put on your, like, or that you're going to have is one you put on yourself.
Right.
And there's, yeah, there's nothing that's going to stop you if you don't see some. Does this, I mean, I'm not making
I
much
think,
sense here, but
well, it is, you limit yourself by thinking you can't.
there
Yeah.
you
And
go.
as far as a positive attitude, always look for the positive. Yes, we've had Christmas dinner where I've sold it off the table because the kitchen was closed and a flight wanted to leave because they didn't like the weather.
Wow.
And I've hustled through gas stations to get different something that for an aircraft that had to have something. But it's because we love what we do, and it's a mother. As a business, I feel like we are a mother to everyone we work with. We have to
Okay.
take care of them. We have to make them look good so
Mm-hmm.
that they can shine. We don't want the glory to be ours. We want it to be that person's.
Love.
And I think, as far as the glass ceiling that Amanda mentioned, I've found in aviation, if you are passionate about what you're doing and you are
Mm-hmm.
interested, there is no shortage of people who want to mentor you and talk to you and share with you.
Absolutely.
And the more
Absolutely.
willing you are to share, the more people want to share. Pilots coming up to me. I always love doing programs and presentations at conferences
Yep.
that, and it's shock and awe. And afterwards they go, oh my God, that was the grossest presentation ever on food safety, but we need more of those programs. And I love doing that because I do things, and it was something that was appealed to by all genders, because it wasn't that just a female approach or a whiny approach. It was like, okay, so let me see if I can gross you out here. You know,
Yeah.
and so I know Ed Bolin to this day walks up to me and he says, I still haven't eaten sushi since your presentation on food safety. Whether that's something I should be proud of or not, but I do have people that I see all over the world and they go, oh, you're the food safety person.
Yes. Yep.
You scared me. But it was never a male female type industry, because everybody that is in it loves it.
Sure.
And
Yep.
if you love it, you want to share your experience and the information, and you want to
And
share contacts.
you want to help other people get
Yes.
started in it because you love it so much. You want them to be as involved and passionate about it as you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that really bothers me. You have all these people out there now that are saying, I'm going to mentor you, but it's going to cost you 3,000 or 4,000. I never paid a penny to be mentored.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mentored all the way up. And even to this day, I find people want to share things with me because they know that I'm going to share it. So, but that's my take on having that glass ceiling. It didn't exist because we didn't let it exist, you
I
know?
love that. I think that I don't hear that very often, and I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Because maybe like what you're saying is we're creating those glass ceilings ourselves by maybe not being passionate enough or willing to ask or receive mentorship, ask for
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Great point. I love
But
that.
aviation is the most unique and incredible industry of any that I've encountered, because it's so small, but it's so huge.
So true.
So, you share something with one person and it comes back to you. I remember there was one time that I was doing a program at the EBAA flight attendant group, and
Mhm.
they had found somebody from Australia. And she said, oh, I'd like to do a program, and I'm going to call it A Lemon is Not a Lemon. And someone named Paula Kraft put it together, and I saw it, and it changed my life. And so I was on the committee putting the things in. And so when that came in on as a request, I sent back and said, I would be thrilled for you to present that. And she goes, oh my God, I can't present your program to you. And I said, but yeah, you could. So,
Right?
yeah, so it's all about the sharing and the giving, and you
Sharing.
don't see gender then.
Yep. No, I love that.
So,
You're right. So you're not like trying to say, I'm the only one who can own that information. And it's really out there to share with everybody. Everybody can
yes,
reshare. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Wow,
very
so
good.
cool. So let's I want to get to DaVinci here soon, but I don't want to miss out on the really cool Airware company that you guys put together. So Airware is all about aviation products, but can you guys tell me, where did the idea come from and how did you decide to launch it? Because I'm assuming that comes with some manufacturing, or at least finding the manufacturer.
It was finding it, and it was actually, um, I was working at Tastefully Yours, and I was in charge of, like I said, all the bookkeeping and the back end of things at Tastefully Yours.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a problem locating products that were suitable for use on aviation or in
Okay.
aviation, general aviation.
Yep.
So when we would find them, there were generally some absolutely crazy minimum requirements, for ordering and things like that, where we would have to order 10 or 12 cases of one item because it was a
Or
special order.
$10,000 worth of
Yeah, and
product.
I was
Wow.
about to say, and each one of those cases, was $150 to $200, and then and this one, the thing I'm thinking about is the executive box lunch,
Okay.
and we use Cisco, and for Cisco to bring it in, we had to order 10 of each piece,
Okay.
and it's a 3-piece box lunch, so we had the base, the lid, and the insert. So if you're talking about finding a place to store 30 cases
True.
just for one product in the kitchen, it's like, all of a sudden. And then it was, whether it was Ziploc bags or the 3-pound oblong foil pan, I mean, all of those things were all special order. And so it was a quantity situation, and it was a price situation, and it was
Okay.
never something you could have a fast turnaround on. So I told Mom, I said, we can't be the only mid-sized aviation caterer that's going through this, or even the smaller markets where they're only doing aviation catering sometimes, and they need to be able to order smaller quantities of those items that do work best for aviation.
Sure.
So we said, well, this sounds like a business, and so we basically set everything up, said, these are items that we use. We're going to go ahead and inventory them. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to keep them in stock all the time, so you don't have to wait 6 weeks or a month, or, whatever time frame it generally was to get a hold of the products that worked. And they were all in one place. So you only had one vendor. Because
Nice.
at that point, I was ordering from 12 different vendors
Wow.
just for the products that we were using on a day-to-day basis inside the kitchen.
Yep. Okay.
And it was just so frustrating because the bottles and the lids came, the juice bottles and the lids came from one company, the baskets came from another company, the box lunches came from one company, the foil pans came from another, the microwave containers came from another, all of those different products just for the disposables, or I mean, we do consider everything in our kitchen disposable,
Mm-hmm.
because it goes out and it might never come back.
Okay.
Um, so all of those items were just the logistics of trying to get a hold of everything. And I said, wow, wouldn't it be so great if we had one place that we could call? And I said, we can't be the only ones thinking of that.
Right.
So we started doing basically the same thing, small orders for small caterers around the country. And then when some of the flight attendants found out that they could order some of that product in smaller amounts, then they were like, oh, can I get, 25 or 30 of this pan, and I'm just going to keep them at the hangar or keep a few of them on my aircraft. And then it was like, hey, well, since you can get us these disposables, what about, can you help me with my crystal? Can you help me with the china? Can you help me with the flatware
Sure.
and the linens? So everything kind of mushroomed, and as with Tastefully Yours, where the customer defines what it is we're serving, we're
Mm-hmm.
also the same premise behind Airware. The customer decides what we sell. So we made contacts and connections for everything from disposables all the way up to the fine china and crystal and
And
silver.
beds and
Yeah,
the,
and bedding,
Oh, the
yep,
jet. Oh, bedding.
jet beds, but
yep,
yeah.
and the jet beds.
Wow, it's
So
like a natural progression of just
Yeah.
your customers asking for it. And of course, the cost you mentioned too. Wow, very cool.
Absolutely. So, and we, of course, in every area, we tried to put something in, whether it was plates or napkins or silverware or boxes, things that were either, I say green, because there is a lot of waste in aviation, but it's a lot of it's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's not much way on the aircraft for them to have recycling separated or compostable separated from their regular garbage. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
once they get to the FBO, it's at that point, is it up to the FBO to go through the garbage and, put it in the correct bin?
Right.
So we're trying to find the best way to do that was with glass, or something that's reusable,
Yep.
because that's the best thing for the environment, is to be able to have a product that you can reuse multiple times rather than just throwing it away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we ended up leaning towards more at Airware. So, but
Eco-friendly. I love it.
absolutely.
but one thing too that has helped Airware grow, we have a showroom at DaVinci with Airware, and we go through the showroom and we show the students when they are there, come in here and pick up, touch, feel, see the difference in this, and ask what the difference in bone china and porcelain and how much white clay goes in, that sort of stuff. So we do a lot of answering of questions, how to clean the silver they have
Oh
on
yeah,
the
proper
aircraft,
care. Yeah, proper
proper
care.
care of the
Hmm.
equipment, because that's
Storage.
an expensive asset
Yeah.
involved. And the flight attendant's job is essentially to maintain the owner's asset. Take care of the carpet, the linens, the leather, the tabletops, the ovens. Every bit of that is part of what we do with the extension of Airware. So it becomes part of their service training and their culinary training is to know how the use and care of the equipment that they've got. But the other side of that is because that's something that we integrate into our program for caterers as well as flight attendants and other
Mm-hmm.
businesses, we get approached by companies that have a product that they want us to put out there and get opinions on and
Oh.
stuff like that as a test to
Test
product. And
market. Yeah.
yeah, and there is a company that has is out there and it's called Better Earth,
Okay.
and they approached me a couple of years ago. I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago. They
Yeah.
want to set up a global recycling at all FBOs
Oh,
with the
cool.
product coming from the aircraft. And then
Okay.
to have that product, the recycling, picked up by a vendor so that things were sorted on the aircraft.
Uh-huh.
And then they came up with compostable products that are now being used by NetJets. And so that product is totally compostable. So if the flight attendants can separate it, or when it comes, you land, that'll go into an FBO and they'll have the different bins there. And
Uh-huh.
then Better Earth is trying to coordinate a massive global pickup of these to go into recycling. So
Nice.
more about saving
Compost
energy and
facilities. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
product. So that's the owner's end goal. And so he's asked us if we can help him promote that goal. So, and
Wonderful.
introduce him with the connections that we've got
Uh-huh.
into helping that happen. So it's kind of cool the way things like that come to us, because we're always out there and we're always open to new ideas. That's how you
Absolutely.
grow.
That's oh my gosh, I had never heard of that, but that's wonderful. And you guys do have such a nice following, like a big following, and you can help and promote those wonderful ideas like that. I will link for those listening. I will link down Better Earth into the notes. So if anybody else wants to
Okay.
look them up,
So,
that'd
and
be
I'm
great.
a firm believer. I give you the CEO's phone number rather than somebody at the front desk because we start at the top.
All right, that sounds great. Hey, if you want to grow, people want to learn about that. I mean, I'm happy to talk about LD aviation at any time. Anybody wants to call
Okay.
me up and ask it. So I bet Better Earth is similar.
Yeah. And I think he'd make a good person to have on that you could talk to about his ultimate dream and goal.
All
So,
right.
because he told it to me and he said, "Do you think it's possible?" And I said, "Anything is possible. You get some people behind you and it will take off."
Yep.
No
So
pun
he's got
intended.
NetJets behind him. Yeah.
That's a
Oh, I
huge
didn't catch
client.
that. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No, that's awesome. That's great. So cool. All right. So we'll talk. I will definitely reach out to them because that
Yeah.
sounds like a perfect podcast guest. Okay, so now you've been bringing in DaVinci In-Flight Training Institute, which is the formal name and stuff for your third company that you guys have created.
Mhm.
Amanda, before we kind of started recording, you mentioned that you guys have already been in business with that for what, 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, I still can't believe it's been that long, but yeah.
Yeah. It's
What
crazy, huh?
what inspired the training institute? Paula, was that your love of doing presentations?
Well, it had a little to do with that, but Tastefully Yours was a 7 day a week, 12, 14
Yeah.
hour days. And I thought, you know what? I've put training programs together for NBAA, EBAA, flight
Hmm.
departments, you know, for years and years. And I think I'd like to have a school because I had so many flight attendants asking if they could come to Tastefully Yours to
Hmm.
learn different things about food. And so I thought, I'll just start a school and let's go to Florida because that's a big local market.
Yep.
And we'll teach one class a month, maybe. I'll work 4 days a month and then we'll just be done for the month. Yeah, that
It
didn't
did
last
not
even
turn
one
out that
month.
way.
Best intentions there. But
But it was because of that. The first person that ever asked me or to train her flight attendants
mhm,
was with Gamma Aviation,
okay.
and she lived in Fort Lauderdale. And I was going down quite often to teach her flight attendants, and I thought, you know what, this is a good market. I kind of like it down here, and so we decided we were going to build it there. And I looked like I had enough people to help me, and whatever. And it just, I mean, it was kind of like magic. I in your gut you feel that this is right, and then
Yeah.
when you start doing it, you go, and I know I can't cuss, but I was going to say, holy shit. You go, oh my God, it's catching on. And what am I going to do? Am I doing the right thing? Am
Mhm.
I going in way over my head? Can I afford this?
Right.
I'm going to put everything in this pot. And is it going to actually, survive?
Yeah.
And, I kept with the girls, and I have to give both Amanda and Jacqueline credit. They have never let me get that negative thought. And when I start to think that I'm overdoing or doing too much, they set me straight, and it always works out.
That's so
So, and with DaVinci, we started just as culinary because that was my specialty.
okay.
And then we had what were called back in the day, and 10 years ago, fluff classes. And a
Okay.
fluff class was service. And I knew at that point I couldn't compete with flight safety and facts.
Yeah. Right.
They're so big, they're mega big companies. But as we got going and the turnout for the culinary became so great,
Mhm.
and then the requests for leadership classes, butler classes, service classes.
So
So we
yet
added
again,
that.
our clients got to
Yes.
dictate what
Yes,
it was
whatever
we
they
were
wanted.
offering.
Yep.
And that was kind of what's nice because they would say, "Hey, can you do a class for me on catering out of Whole Foods?" Shoot,
Oh,
yeah, we'll do it. That could be fun.
cool.
Or can you do a program on allergens? And I was
Mhm.
speaking a lot on food safety. So it was like, yeah, let's do that. That'll be kind of fun. And word kind of got out that all they had to do is kind of ask for it,
Okay.
and we create it. And then with the emergency and the egress, so many people coming to Culinary goes, gosh, I wish you guys could do emergency.
Yeah.
And what I love most about Amanda is I can say, I want an airplane and I figure I can get a deal on parts of one for 25 or $30,000. Do you think we can do that? And Amanda would come back to me and she'd say, all right, in order for you to have the money to cover that, you're going to need to teach 71.2 students in a 4-day program. And then maybe, depending on how much you spend on supplies, we
Yeah.
could afford to do it.
Okay.
And same thing with the equipment in the kitchen. I wanted additional refrigerators and freezers, and
Mhm.
Amanda put it to me like, okay, that single door freezer, you need 6 students. And if you got 7, then it would cover any increase in delivery.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Great.
we built the school with Amanda giving me my goals in how many students I had to teach, and it kind of became a joke with the people and the companies that were coming so often. And out of that, we ended up. And when I speak at conferences, I always ask at the end if anybody has any airplane parts pieces, I'll take it. And that's how I got the Gulfstream. I got the Embraer that way.
Really?
And then we went dumpster diving and got enough pieces to do an open concept trainer where you can sit on the outside and watch service taking place.
Okay.
And then we had students that husbands worked in air crash or aircraft, what do you,
Oh,
chopping
okay.
aircrafts. And
Mm-hmm.
so, can I come in and take your courses if my husband will get you um, the drink rail off of an airplane? Or, and I said, yep, count me in.
Life
So,
vests. We've
Nice.
gotten a lot of life vests as well.
yes. And I love the life vest because now that we're getting enough, we're going to do a program at NBAA this year called Pop the Vest. So we're
Oh,
going to set up a scenario with a vest under the seat. And they have to crawl out the window and pop
wow.
the vest on the wing. It'll all be mock, stuff. It won't be real wing and real window. But then, because when the first time that I actually popped a vest,
Yeah.
it scared the living daylights out of me.
Really?
And it was icy cold. And I was
Okay.
not prepared for that cold and how it came up so tight around my neck.
Okay.
And so I know a lot of people do it, but a lot of them don't have to take and pull and tear to get it out of a bag. And that was my hardest part. And
Okay.
then when it comes out of the bag, all those cords that they show you, just slide this around your waist and snap
Yes.
it here, they're all rubber band together. So it's not like you've got these things loose. You got to figure out how to get them unwrapped after you get the vest out of that package.
Interesting.
So I said to Amanda, I said, what do you think if we did this and we did a pop your vest and
Mhm.
do, a whole marketing around that? She said, oh, I like that. You have until, what was my deadline? You have to have all that by September, planned,
September 1st.
ordered
Yep.
September 1st. And then you can do it for NBAA at our booth. And I said, okay. And I'm working on it.
That sounds
So,
so
but I
cool.
think it'll be fun.
That's so going to be fun. And when you were talking about that, it made me think. I went on the airplane, so I have a third baby. I have an infant, a 7-month-old now. And on the picture in the airplane, it was like put the life vest on, and then you loop this cord around here, and then attach it to the baby somehow. And do you guys ever do
Yes.
mock kid stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually,
And pets.
and
Oh,
pets.
cool. Oh, I hadn't
So
thought about
for
that.
me, we founded DaVinci on the Montessori style. And a
Okay.
Montessori style is experience, experimentation, touch, feel, see, taste,
Mm-hmm.
rather than watching PowerPoints or
Yeah.
sitting
Okay.
down and learning with a lecture. Everything we do is hands on.
Great.
So that way, if we've got somebody that's not getting it, we can physically see so that we can pull and do more time with that person. So in the emergency, the
Yeah.
instructor regularly comes in early for those people who are having trouble. So if she says in class, why don't you guys come in early tomorrow? We'll spend an extra hour
Mm-hmm.
doing that to make you feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the what she's doing, we had a life raft too that didn't hold the air. It
It
was
had
Yeah.
a leak in it.
had a leak, yes, but it
Sure.
was
Slow leak.
because
Yeah.
it was exposed to the sunlight. So the sunlight broke the finish. So
Okay.
what she did, she took that raft, let them have it inflated, so pop it and inflate it in a pool, but it lost its air so fast
Mm-hmm.
that they couldn't flip it and they couldn't get in
Oh.
it.
Uh-huh.
So that was the scenario that she does now. That what happens when your raft doesn't work? Because
Okay.
it always works in the training, but what happens? And
True.
how is that? So we we do more unusual fun things like that. So, and Amanda said, we have babies and those babies have poopy diapers,
Yeah.
and the flight attendants that come give me their worst case scenario that has happened to them.
Yeah.
The dogs on board poop on the carpet. That's a hazmat. How do you clean it up if you're in the middle of meal service without making everybody sick? So, what if, as one flight attendant told me, lady had her baby, she put it on the table as she was setting it for dinner
Yeah.
and changed the baby's diapers. So we have dogs on board. So when the flight attendant is serving a meal, the passenger, because the students play passenger and they play crew. So
Okay.
you get a turn at the crew and a turn at being a passenger. So they love to throw wrenches into the system. So
That's great.
they'll say, could
My
the,
allergies are
yes,
at the
yes,
time of meal service.
Of
and
course.
also, could you prepare the dog some free range chicken, maybe with some organic spinach, so they, and then the flight attendant that has that as her, she's being the flight attendant for that passenger, has to actually do that. So we throw
Great.
a lot of scenarios in where they don't know what's coming. I think one of the most fun ones we had was about 2 months ago. We had a student, and he's been to DaVinci for training 3 times now with
Mhm.
the company he's with. He comes every other year. And he said, I have children now, and I never thought about children and how they behave on an airplane. And he said, we took my son, and he was 3 years old, and he was jumping up and down on the tray tables, on the chairs, and climbing over the seats and falling into people's lap. And he said, do you mind if I play my 3-year-old son during the lunch service today? And I said, oh, I think it sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And he was literally jumping in the seats, and he was screaming and yelling and saying, no, I don't want that, and all the different things. But then the flight attendant had to deal with it.
Sure.
So we
Yep.
end up laughing and having fun, but it's a memorable thing they'll never forget. And I think that's the part of Da Vinci that's so successful is, yes, we teach, and we've teamed up with MedAir. So we do MedAir training as part of the recurrent if they want it.
Okay.
Um, but we do things that are required, and we do them in a little more depth, I think, because I notice we're getting comments that we're on other competitors' radar right now because they're
Oh,
getting so many comments about how cool our program is. And we're doing what is required, but we do more than's required.
oh yes. Give back more.
So, and they have a standard test from the emergency that they have to take that Gulfstream puts out.
Okay.
But we've added our own additional test that's a lot harder because
Ah.
we want to make sure that they're getting a lot more information,
Mm-hmm.
and that they have to remember that. So, and at the end of class, they're family. And when they leave, they've got our personal phone numbers, and we get phone calls. I'm getting ready to go on a trip and I need a recipe for, whatever, or I
Sure.
need a caterer. And we are there because they're part of the Tastefully Yours family or the Airware family or the DaVinci family. And
Mm-hmm.
it's it's heartwarming.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the expression on someone's face in the culinary or the service when they go, ah, I got it, or when they get their emergency commands loud enough and sharp enough. And we have volunteers from the businesses nearby that come in to be passengers in the emergency training. And, I go in and I'm a passenger and, they're trying to evacuate me and I'm going, no, I'm not leaving my dog or I'm not leaving my cell phone. And I'm videoing as they're trying to get
Oh,
me out.
yeah.
And so then, how do you handle somebody like that? You grab the phone, you throw it out, get it out of the way. So we have dummy phones for that. And,
Cool.
the dogs and the life vests and all of that sort of thing. So we have a lot of fun
Yeah.
doing it, but creating scenarios that we either hear about or that we've had a student say, this happened to me on my last flight. My
Mm-hmm.
catering didn't arrive and I had to create out of the snack drawer.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's a scenario that somebody wants to give them during class, then that's what they have to do.
Mm-hmm. I love
So,
it. And
yeah,
I think, does that go back to your kind of creativity as a family of, you're creating not only additional classes, or additional companies, but you're creating new content for those companies.
correct. Yeah. And we're loving it because we're approaching it, like I said, from a Montessori style, and
Mm-hmm.
that's so interactive, and
Mm-hmm.
But it
nobody
also
sits.
means that we as the instructors are learning from our students as well.
Yes, this is true.
And we've had a lot of students that come in for the service class and they have more experience or different experience with
Yes,
serving sushi or doing the ceremonial
teas.
teas,
Yep.
things like that, that they'll say, hey, this is what I have found works for me. And
Mm-hmm.
then we'll let them actually come up and show what they've done, and then we end up in turn learning from them as well.
We had that happen, Amanda, if you remember, with a Japanese student who was from Japan.
Yes,
And
yeah.
she said, I'd love to teach you about matcha tea and the service and how to serve it and present it.
Oh,
And then we've had students from Arab countries that want to teach us and show the class how to stack all the tea and the coffee cups for an Arabic tea service.
okay.
And, so that's we've got it, but it's something then that they're more interactive with because we're allowing them to fill in and create demos. So if you've got a talent or you've got a skill and you want to share that, we'll
Mm-hmm.
make it happen and we'll figure out how to get it into the agenda.
That's
So
so
yeah.
cool. Okay, just because we mostly do scheduler dispatch. Do you have a course that maybe talks about how to order catering just from on a phone call? Like,
What?
we're not necessarily located
Okay. Well,
there.
Amanda can tell you about that. We did have a client that was opening an aviation catering business, and they asked, can you teach my schedulers how to order catering?
Yeah.
And so
And
we
we do
did.
have an online program with
That's
DaVinci that's complimentary,
Okay.
that's on our website that you can log on and take how to order catering. And it just covers the basics, information that the caterer needs as far as not just when and where,
Mm-hmm.
but how many passengers do you have, or what's the seating like, so that we know if it's for 8 passengers, do you want it on 2 trays? Do you
Yeah.
want it split onto 3, 4 trays? Do you have 2 sets of 4, or you're going to have everybody sitting in 4 different spaces with 2 people in each? I mean, it all kind of depends. Like, that's information that will help us make it a better service for the passengers, which ultimately is the goal of every one of these businesses, and everything that we're doing is to make the end user experience better than it was, or
Yeah.
has been in the past.
and to
So
build confidence in those that are in the cabin.
absolutely.
Okay.
So A
Mhm.
lot of times we have a flight attendant who comes in the first day, they say, I can't do this. I'm afraid to do this. And I go, first thing we're going to do is say, yes, you can do it. And yes, you will learn how to do it. And you'll love it when you leave. And, to get rid of that negative attitude. But we are working now to put together a food safety and ordering program for schedulers and dispatch, because we find that the schedulers, and Amanda can talk from this from Tastefully Yours, but when they order food and they have allergens, they just put an allergen at the top of the list, but they don't tell you which one of those 8 people the allergen is for.
Mm-hmm.
And the severity of the allergen would determine whether it should even be on the aircraft or not.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
So, there's lots of different things that a scheduler has to look at when they place an order from what a flight attendant. If there's no flight attendant on board, then you're assuming the passengers are going to serve themselves. You don't want to send them something hot where they have to turn the oven on.
Right. Or even bulk in,
Yep.
bulk salad. You probably don't want to do that because they wouldn't
Right.
maybe know where serving spoons are. I think that, at least for my group of people, is really important because, kind of like you said, Paula, you said you fell into aviation.
Hmm.
Most schedulers fall into aviation because there's really not a career track that says, hey, I'm going to be a scheduler. Anyway, so we have to learn it along the way. And I
Hmm.
think size of boxes is a big deal also. I think a lot of the new people don't even understand how tiny a refrigerator is on the aircraft.
If there
Hmm.
is a refrigerator.
Yeah, right. If there is a refrigerator, or if there's even any sort of heating. Um,
Elements at all, yeah.
right. Mm-hmm. Great class. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye out for that because that sounds like a really cool one.
I'll send it to you and you can try it out.
Okay, great. I love it.
So,
So I'm going to kind of go back to the businesses as a whole, and we talked about um, maybe some difficulties. What about advantages of running a family business?
well, so we both kind of laugh at that. Yes, the advantages, you always get to take your family to work with you.
That's a
Yeah.
big advantage. My husband works with me at Tastefully
Oh,
Yours and at
cool.
Airware and at DaVinci.
No way. I
So,
didn't know
yep.
that. Oh, it's so cool.
So, and even though Jacqueline is not working actively with us, she
Uh-huh.
still is working and doing things behind the scenes for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just running errands or getting a hold of certain things. I know for our emergency training, uh, director of training had said, I need some new equipment. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, send me a list. So I sent the list to Jacqueline, and
Uh-huh.
her husband is a pilot.
Okay.
So he knew what it was. I had no idea what she was asking for. So Jacqueline gave it to her husband. He went through, researched it, found everything, sent it back to Jacqueline. Jacqueline ordered it, and we had it all shipped within a week.
That's
But
awesome.
she was asking for things that I didn't know what they were. Jacqueline didn't know what they were.
Sure.
And so, and I look at all the things that we do have, and I'm thinking, and we still need more, but
Yeah.
Right.
but
Well, that
what
I
we
think.
yeah, I was going to say that what we do that I really like, we don't just have one brand of anything.
Okay.
We have multiple brands so that flight attendants can see that things in safety are packaged differently, may look differently.
Okay.
So, your Med-Air kit
Mm-hmm.
is always going to look like Med-Air kit, but then Med-Air has given us kits that we literally take apart to show them how they're put together and where things are within the kits.
Okay.
And
Yep.
that's part of the basic first aid, and it's not even part of the course, but they do provide us with that equipment. So defibrillators, how many different style
Sure.
defibrillators are there? The new DAC system from Med-Air and how to use that and
Mm-hmm.
how to charge it and what you need to know as a flight attendant. That thing comes to you, but it's not charged. A charge
Oh,
only lasts 10 days. So even though it's been told to the person that bought it, it may have not trickled down to the flight
sure.
attendant. So we give them additional instruction. We let them play with it.
Nice.
And then I know one of the new things that we just got were new CPR dolls that the chest actually moves when they breathe. And what happens, it has a computer chip that if you are pressing too hard, a red light appears. If you're not
Oh,
pressing hard enough, a red light appears. When you get the
okay.
right rhythm and the right compression, gives you a green light. So you learn by feeling the chest as you're doing your compressions or your mouth to mouth, you can see the light to tell you this is right or this is wrong, so that you learn how to get it perfect, because you couldn't
Hmm.
see that in the old dolls, but now you can see it in the new ones. It's really
That's
cool.
great.
I that was my new thing. I said, "Oh, I want to play with this one."
Yeah, new technology, new, and everybody's visual. You knew red good. I'm sorry,
Yep.
red bad, green good.
Yep.
Huh. Oh, I
Well,
can't wait to look through all your list of classes. I haven't done it recently, so we'll put.
Okay.
there's a lot there for sure. But going back to your original question about, working with family, the advantages of it. I mean, like I said, obviously, other than being able to spend time with your family at work, I mean, it makes it not so bad working on holidays if your family's in there with you and you're still
Sure.
able to spend time with them.
Yeah, we
But
Good.
celebrated Easter in the kitchen together this year.
we did.
Yes, we
All right.
did. So, and
But
Christmas.
it's also, your family's going to stay until the job's done.
Sure.
And it's not so much about what time it is or anything like that. It has to do with, getting everything done. And
Hmm.
mom always said the reason family businesses work so well in general aviation is because, you know you can use and abuse your family and they're not going to quit.
Right. Very true. Yep.
But
Well,
you
and
don't do
everybody's
that to an
focused.
employee.
No, it's really different. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's really different. What about any advice to other women, or even or families that might want to start a business in aviation?
Advice.
Ooh, the business consumes your personal life
Yeah.
If you let it.
if you let it,
If
and
you
we
let
have
it.
let it, because for me, it's as
It's a
much
passion, and
it
that's what
is.
my advice was going to be. Whatever business, whatever it is, whether it's in aviation or it's anywhere, be passionate about what you are trying to accomplish. Be passionate about the business that you want to get into,
Mhm.
especially with your family. And if your family is passionate about you and you're
Mhm.
passionate about something else and they want to support you, then that's going to be something that's going to be beneficial to you. But in general, just I the passion or the love of what you're doing is what is going to support your business or make it grow, make it better.
People want
It
to connect to
They
people who
do.
are
They're
passionate.
drawn to you if you
Yeah.
have the passion.
Sure.
And I see that all the time with my mother. And when I've watched it since I was a child, where she would start talking about something and you'd see her eyes light up and she'd get
Mhm.
all excited and she'd start talking really, really fast. And everybody would just, be completely enamored with her. And then they would get excited because she was excited. And
Yeah.
it's something that is contagious,
Mhm.
and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing to be able to see. And again, that to me is the biggest thing, is if you're passionate about what you're doing,
Mhm.
then you'll be successful no matter what. So
Great point. Super great point. All right. One last question. What legacy are you hoping to leave uh, for in aviation?
For
I think
me,
I was about to
yeah,
say, I think I can answer this for
both of
Paula.
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely for her, because I know what her goal is. And it's to better the people that are in the industry, make the job a career. Like you said, there's not exactly a career path for a scheduler. It's not
Right.
exactly a career path generally as a flight attendant. It's something that we want to be taken seriously as a role. We
Right.
want the different aspects of it to be taken as a career, as a purpose. There's something more than just serving drinks and having a smile on your face when the passengers get on board.
And it's more
And
than a flight attendant wanting to find a husband
that
or
too.
a wife. You know, I'm
Sure.
going to hang out with the rich folks so that I can get there. And
Yeah.
I see that, and I look at the training that a flight attendant needs to cover food allergies, sensitivities, first aid, to be a nanny, to be a counselor, to be a confidant, to be a chef. And that training is as intensive as pilot training,
Yeah.
but it's not a career. So
Mhm.
it's they are professionals, and they need to be looked at and respected as a professional rather than a pretty face in the back of the cabin. You know, they're the eyes and the ears for the pilots. When they see things out the window the pilots can't see.
Yeah.
So they have more than just a serve role. And I think being a professional and looking at them as a professional is my ultimate goal. I want to
Okay.
raise the bar on the qualifications and the needs, and even to try and get more training for them required. But I know that's an uphill battle,
Okay.
because the more training someone has, the more they charge for
Yeah.
their services. And we are in an operator business. So we do what the operator and the owners want, because they're ultimately the client. So it falls back to whether they want to improve the quality of the staff that they've got. Does that, I don't want it to sound really bad, but that's
No,
kind
that
of
sounds
my thing.
great. And I think the more that, I mean, the more you're championing this cause, the more people will recognize how important it is and be willing to pay more and willing to pay for that training that they have.
Yeah.
More
Well,
of
and
us.
I think it's sad that the flight attendants are carrying the brunt of the burden to attend training rather than having the owners realize, listen, the more training they have, the better your interior is going to look. The better it's going to be for your diet, your circadian rhythm. How are they
The
feeding
better
the
it's going to be
crew?
for the passenger
And the
experience.
passenger experience, which is ultimately, you know, what they're going for. But it's a
Yeah.
benefit to train rather than a cost. They, I think it just needs to be shifted. It's an improved experience all around, and it's improved safety.
Well, and we're not talking millions of dollars either. I mean, it's
Mm-mm.
probably a huge return on the price that you're paying for the training. You just get
Right.
so
Well,
much.
in today's day and age, it's about the same price as a good catering order for 6 to 8 people
Well, that's
for a
not
weeks
anything.
of training, you know?
Like
And then
barely
if
anything.
they're not trained properly on what to do with that food once they receive it, or, as far as reheating it and plating it, then it doesn't matter how much you spend on the food if it's going to be ruined at the
Right.
time of reheating and serving. So
No, it's so
all of
true.
that plays a part.
It
Yeah.
really does. It's so true. Well, I applaud that passion. I just can't wait to see how far you guys take it. And DaVinci, like you said, is only 8 or 9 years into it, and it's already growing. It sounds wonderful. I'll have to see if I can't pick out a training to go to over
Well,
there.
and you
We'd
can
love to
come,
have you.
yes, and you can come just hang out with us. And that's one thing we do with our flight attendants. If they pass through and they're in the area, they're
Mhm.
welcome to come and spend the day with us. And we don't
Yeah,
charge. I mean, we put them to work. So you can
great.
come join the class. If you're in culinary, you're going to help with the dishes, but you can
Okay.
participate in the culinary that day. So,
So
and
cool.
as we get closer and closer to the new location in Sarasota, we'll
Uh-huh.
have our own pool for the training, and egress classrooms, and it'll be something that's kind of a one of a kind, a one-stop shop.
That is so cool. Remind me again, what is your time frame on that one?
Next
Amanda,
year. Yeah,
within
next year.
Next year,
after
We
sometime
were
2026.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were hoping it would be by the end of this year, but it's looking like it'll be sometime around June of next year,
Okay. All right.
2026.
Hey, but that's coming right up. That's just a year away. And to create all
Yeah.
of that, I mean, that's a lot of work, and it'll come around very quickly.
yep.
Believe me, I
Well, we
know.
had to get rezoned. They didn't have
Oh,
any more educational zoning for the airport, so we're waiting on the zoning board to meet and change the zoning requirements so we can have our facility.
oh my gosh. I feel like we could go through a whole just conversation on the weird things that require a business owner has
Yes.
to deal with.
Yeah,
Because
Amanda
I
with
can
could
tell you.
zoning,
definitely fill your time with that.
right?
For sure.
Who would have even thought zoning was an issue,
Or
Like,
traffic engineers. Have you ever heard of a traffic engineer? That was another fun one. So,
How many
no.
curb cuts are you going to have, and how many new cars are you going to put on the road outside your building?
yeah.
Oh,
And how about
no.
watershed engineers?
Oh my gosh,
Where's
right?
the water going to run off to? So, oh, yes, you can build this nice big pond and run your stuff into it, but it'll have to be fenced and maintained. And then you have to build electrical substations so that you can get electricity, or you have to run sewer from the street to the building. Oh, yes. And
Yeah,
how
and
high
that's
is your
that's just for
building?
the business. That's just for DaVinci in Sarasota versus
Right.
what we have to do on a yearly basis at Tastefully Yours. The fat, oil, and grease. That's actually called fog permits.
Oh,
Um, yes, and all of
wow.
that stuff has to be maintained, and yeah, it's a hot mess for sure. But
I
it
feel like we
comes with
should
the
go through it.
territory.
Right, it does. I do feel like that would be not a bad conversation for a couple of business people to come together. Because while we don't do that, we have licenses, and then we're not. I mean, we haven't even discussed the HR piece of that and making sure everybody is covered HR wise. So
We don't have HR. Okay.
there we go. Just
Not
Yep, it doesn't
technically.
exist.
Not technically.
that. Hey, that's probably easier. But you're in two states. You're in Florida and
Georgia.
Georgia. Hmm.
Georgia. Anyway, I know there could be a whole nother conversation on that. So,
Absolutely.
well, ladies, this has been such a great conversation. Really, thank you both sincerely for taking some time to talk to me about that. And I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as well.
Me too.
Well, we
Yeah,
had fun.
awesome.
Absolutely.
So great to talk to you again after I haven't spoken with you guys for many years, which again, like I said in the beginning, was way overdue. So, anyway, that is a wrap for today's episode of the LD Aviation Podcast. Once again, a huge thank you to Paula and Amanda Kraft for joining me and sharing not just their stories, but their wisdom and humor and heart. It really is always a joy to chat with two women I really sincerely admire deeply. So let's be real also. Very few people can turn catering and paper goods and training into a legacy like you guys have. So it's
Thank
amazing.
you.
And if this episode has inspired you or made you smile or given you a few aha moments, please do me a favor and like it, share it, and make sure you're subscribed so you'll never miss another conversation like this one. And if you're curious to learn more about our guests or their businesses, please don't forget to check the show notes for links to Tastefully Yours, Airware, and DaVinci In-Flight Training Institute. And yes, you can absolutely find Paula and Amanda on LinkedIn. So go say hi, tell them you listened, and let them know they're kind of a big deal. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the LD Aviation Podcast, where we keep it high flying, high energy, and just a little fabulous. We're so glad you joined us for this episode of the LD Aviation Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, share, and follow. Your support helps us keep the conversation going and grow our amazing community.